You guys ready?
Yeah.
Ready to talk about that game?
Yeah, we are.
That team? We can do this a couple of ways. I can ask a couple of questions, and I don't know, when you guys get together, normally what do you talk about? You know, just kind of that stuff. If you tell old stories or have
Talk about the
memories-
players and
memories
some of the
old games.
games and
Sure,
stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Dan, you want to start? Tell me what being a part of that Mercy Bowl team means to you now.
Well, it's such a privilege, but an honor. But when you're doing it, you just think the team was so close together. I've been coaching a lot of years and never been on a team that was. Every one of us were like brothers, and if somebody made a mistake, there was always some guy who would pick it up and try to help so it didn't show up. I mean, we were just like that. And what I remember most about it is that the brotherhood and the closeness that the team had with each other. And I think the coaches, later on when I coached with Bob Burgess, he told me some stories, but I think that they set it up that way, but we fell for it, and not one guy would let another guy down. No matter what team you played on, no matter what, we were just so close. And that's what I remember. And the other thing that I remember that I can't forget is when they said we're going to go to L.A. and play in the Mercy Bowl in the Coliseum, because that was the Olympics and stuff had been, and I thought, Jesus, but when we got there and we walked out the door and there's 100,000 seats, I was in shock. So you take it from there, Jim.
Yeah, I think talking about the uniqueness of the team kind of started with the head coach, Cecil Coleman. I came in 1959, of which most of us did from junior college. There were players here prior to my coming, and there were players here after. These guys were after and during. But he created a system that we've never seen before or since. And we only had 36, 38 players. And he decided that he was going to have a red team and a blue team that would play equal time at 7.5 minutes, regardless where you were on the field, regardless what the situation was. They were going to switch teams. So there were, in fact, 22 starters, not 11 starters. So I think you can imagine the camaraderie that brought in the fact that everybody was a part of, and a cohesion. And it didn't make a difference if you're on the 1 yard line going in, you were going out.
That's right.
And the other team was coming in. If you're on the 1 yard line going out, then the pressure was, but we thrived with that. And I don't think there's ever been a program that's done it since or before, and every year we got better. We're 8-3, 9-1, 10-0. It was, and I can say this because I might not get to talk again. We should have been 10-0 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And the reason we weren't is because of me. So that you always remember the sad parts in your athletic career more than you remember the reward parts.
But there's a little ironic thing here. He's going to tell you that he missed an interception that he should have had, but it's 63 years now since we played, and he still holds the record for interceptions. Jim Sanderson still holds the record at Fresno State University, the most interceptions, period. And so
anyway, the one I should have had, and I wasn't out of position. It was a deal where it was a terrible throw, a wounded duck up there, and you're waiting and you're waiting. And I remember I jumped and tried to get it at its high point, and I jumped too soon. Went off my fingertips and went right into the receiver's hands. And there was only a few seconds left on the clock, and they were about 30 yards out with no time, kicked a field goal and beat us by 1.
yeah,
We'd have had 2 undefeated seasons.
Right.
Which would have been, that's the part, unfortunately, that I have to remember, but got to take the good with the bad.
Attaboy, attaboy. Well, I think the things that I recall most of all is that this team has stayed together. As Danny just said, we've been together now 63 years. I've been on a lot of teams, and we all have, high school, college, professional. I've never seen a team stay together like that. over all those years. I mean, we still get together, and we've gotten together all the time after that. And even the players who have passed away, their wives have gotten involved with us, and they've worked with us to help us plan all of our meetings and our banquets and our gatherings. It's pretty special. And the other thing I would say before that Mercy Bowl game, because I'm the fourth quarterback, I'm the youngest guy on the team, and they're showing the films of that Bowling Green, I thought, boy, I'm sure glad I'm not playing. They look like the Cleveland Browns. I thought, we don't have a chance in this ball game. That was a major upset. No one expected Fresno State to win that ball game.
They had 84 players on their team. We had 36.
Could you appreciate what you were playing for?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a
We all,
tragedy.
that's something we did.
The thing back in those days, again, most of the guys went to junior college for 2 years before they went into a four-year university. The reason being, you could play 2 years of junior college ball, then you could transfer and play 3
3
years
years.
of four-year ball.
Yeah.
So I think Tommy came as a freshman. I think Nick Massey came as a freshman. Back in those days, number one, you couldn't even play as a freshman. And number
Right.
two, you still had, you didn't get as many years to play, and you didn't get to play as a freshman, so it didn't make any sense to most of us to go to a four-year school back in those days. So we went to junior college first. And in saying that, we played against a lot of the guys in junior college that were playing at Cal Poly. So we knew there was this, we all knew each other.
Yeah.
So now we're playing against Cal Poly, but we played against them in junior college or maybe even with them. So to represent Cal Poly for the benefit that we did was pretty meaningful and pretty emotional. And as most people, you guys may not know, I spent 26 years coaching at Cal Poly after I played in the Mercy Bowl representing Fresno State to benefit Cal Poly. So my journey is a little bit different and more unique than most of the other Mercy Bowl players, because most of my time coaching for 40 years was at Cal Poly.
But it was emotional to
Oh.
know.
Sure.
Oh,
that
well,
you were-
well, we were,
Sure.
we're kind of, from a little town, 48,000 people, I think, in Fresno at that time, and we played in the Ratcliffe Stadium, and we'd have, we were winning, so and they were winning before Tommy and I got there, but we'd fill it up with 12,000. We thought that was a big deal, and they had 42,000 at the Mercy Bowl game in a 100,000 seat stadium, but 42,000 to us. And in that place we played, it kind of was an emotional thing in a lot of ways. I don't think we expressed that to each other, but when I walked out and I just looked up at that stadium, it just was just something really that you had to think about twice. One thing that I would like to say is, I know freshmen couldn't play, but Tommy went on to be a manager in professional baseball and was a star at Fresno State, and he was there and saw it all and did everything that you could do, but his career was immensely important, because when he got through, he went to a business and he started the reunion thing for the Mercy Bowl. And then he called me and a couple other guys, and we pushed it on there, but we kept this thing together as much as we could.
Let's talk about that, about how you've managed to stay together over all these years and kind of still keep in touch and care about each other.
We've did a lot of phone calling back and forth, especially Dan and myself, and then Jimmy has been coming over from the coast, and we just got together every once in a while, and it just got bigger and bigger. And like I mentioned, some of those wives, like Bob Van Galder's wife, Nancy, and Jeannie Kendrick, and Demi Mias, those ladies all, even though their husbands were gone, they got involved with us, helped us plan the different luncheons and things. So yeah, for 63 years, we've gotten together at least every 2 or 3 years for small groups, and about every 5 years, a big event. And we've done that many, many times. And the other thing I was going to mention too, Ralph, is that whole thing about that Mercy Bowl and the plane crash. Bowling Green played Cal Poly back there at Bowling Green in 1960, beat them 50-6. The Cal Poly plane takes off and crashes, can't get off the ground, 17 people are killed on that plane. And the amazing story, Ted Tolner was the quarterback. He was sitting in the front, and he decided before the plane took off he would move and wanted to sit in the back. Everybody in front of him was killed in that crash. Now to this day, I can't even begin to fathom that. I bet he's had a hard time handling that all of his lifetime too. So now when we come along, in 1961, the conference champion, that's who we are, and Bowling Green wins their conference. President John F. Kennedy and Bob Hope got involved with that thing. We're spearheading that thing and threw some money in. And so over $238,000 was raised. All the players and coaches had to be paid for by the school. Nobody had a free ticket for the ball game. So $238,000 was raised in '61 at that game, and that was all given to the Mercy Bowl families that had lost somebody. To me, that is an amazing, emotional deal.
And
Oh.
that would equate to over $3 million today.
Yeah. And when they told us that we had to pay to get in at that time was $2.50. That's what they had to pay for us players, but everybody had to. Everybody that walked in the stadium had to pay. Yeah, it was quite a deal. I have a story that I think I should tell because we're all getting old. So I'm on the gold team. I have the red team, the blue team, and the gold team. And the gold team, despite the fact that all this is talked about, we scrimmaged the red and the blue team and had actually beat them at a time or two in a scrimmage. We didn't win it, but the point is we had 36 pretty good players, all of them. And Tommy could throw the ball, he get to play, could throw the ball as good as anybody. It's just, the fact is that's how the coaches did it. But we had a guy named Pete Mias, who was the superintendent of California schools, and he was also superintendent here in Fresno, and he was our right tackle on the goal team. And my brother-in-law, Jerry Nemo, was the guard right next to him. And so we're ahead 30-6 or something, and there's about 8 minutes left, and Pete comes over and puts his arm around me and Jerry, and he goes, "You know what? If we don't get this damn game, I'm not taking a trophy. I'm not taking anything, and shove it." And just as he said that, Coleman said, "Gold team in." And we go in and we get the ball and go down to the 1 yard line. We scored a touchdown. We get to the reunion and nothing was said. We're going in, we're with the other team and we're having dinner afterward in this big party. And Pete Mias put his arm around me, Jerry. He said, "I was just kidding, right?" I mean, that was one of the fun stories that happened. But it's just it's just such a memory of how good all these guys were, and we could just talk about it all we want. But I mean, can you imagine intercepting 17 passes? I can't even imagine. Nobody's even done it since. So I mean, that's history. And then Tom going on to be a manager in the professional baseball league, and a lot of the other guys. Jerry Nemo was a coach at McLean, and all the guys that did all those things afterward.
Almost everybody ended up in coaching.
Yeah, we didn't do it. We did it because we loved what we were doing, not for any other reason, but we stayed together. And to me, that's the most important thing that I think was Tommy has said. All these years, we have never gone without getting together for
Right.
some reason or another. Even if it's just a few guys in town, we still do it. And so, and the girls got involved, and we've had all these deals. And we wanted you to come to our big deal, but you had a football game you had to do. Yeah.
60-some years later, you're still a team.
63, we're still.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's that like?
And even though a lot of them have passed away, again, many of their wives are involved with it.
Yeah.
Another lady is Nancy Masick. But again, the guys that are still around, and the memories are so clear. I mean, Bo Carter and Jan Barrett were the MVPs of that ball game, and everything they did was great. And I can remember the first part of the game, because again, I know I'm not going to play. I'm sitting on the edge. I sit on the end bench. Pete Mia sits next to me each game, and we say, boy, we got the best seats in the house. We don't have to pay for them either. And we don't have to play against these big guys. But I thought, there's probably no way we're going to even come close in this game. But we stayed close all the way in the first half, and I thought we went out in the second half, we have an outside chance. And then we blew them away in the second half of that ball game. And that was a big emotional thing. And again, playing in the LA Coliseum for a team from Fresno State, that was a big deal.
It's
that
big.
was a big deal at that time.
It's big.
And Danny mentioned about, or Jimmy mentioned about Cecil Coleman, a great coach, but we had some great assistants. Bob Burgess and Kenny Gleason, Bobby Van Gelder. I mean, those guys all did a great job, and they worked our humps off, really worked us hard, but we all knew they were doing it to help us get better.
Yeah, I thought that Bob Van Gelder was, he'd played the year before with Jim when they, on the 1-point game, when they could have won it all. Then he became a coach. And so his wife just picked it up from there. She's with us on all of our organization and everything. But he coached us. He coached Tommy and I and our teams. And he was a fantastic coach. He just, not many guys can come in with that kind of knowledge. But I think he just was, I don't know. He just.
Well, he had the background because his dad.
Well,
his
he
dad,
did, but
Van
he just
Gelder was a coach,
had a
so he
way.
grew up with it.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. But he just had a way of doing things that just, I picked up on it. I just thought he was fantastic. Yeah.
I mentioned to you that guy that I know, Dave Severance, who's a basketball coach. He's in the NBA, but I think Bob Van Gelder is his father-in-law.
Really?
Yeah.
Might have been.
Does Bob have a daughter named Julie?
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I really
Yeah,
see
he
it.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
she lives right over here. I'd see her all the time. But yeah, it's probably
Yeah,
related.
they live over at Cedar and Knees. And Dave went into the NBA and was a developmental coach for the Chicago Bulls and the LA Clippers. And now I think he's just a scout.
Yeah, I think his daughter's Julie, though, for sure. Yeah.
And I talked to Ted Toner about that.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
he's still haunted by
I
that.
think a
That
guy
have
that
to
needs
be.
to be mentioned on this particular team, there's a legend from Lemoore that everybody that goes to the
Right.
Fresno State games, Dale Messer. He and I had played together at COS, and then we came up here. But the best player on our team was not Dale Messer. The best player on our team was a guy named Sonny Bishop, who was a lineman. And if Dale was alive today and was sitting here, he would tell you the same
That's
thing.
right.
He was the most talented player of our time, for sure. He
Tough.
went on and played for the Houston Oilers, was
Right.
an all-pro player, and one of the most humble, gracious, nicest people you could ever imagine.
Just
But
loved him.
This is how athletic he was. He was probably close to 250 pounds at the time, which was big back in those days.
Right.
Probably 6'2", 6'3", could run. He would run with the backs and the receivers
Yep.
just to get competition. That's how good he was.
Yep.
And it didn't make any difference if it was a 40-yard dash or if it was a 440. He could run with the backs and the receivers. He in today's modern football, I could see him like as a middle linebacker. And he was just the nicest person ever. And Sonny's still alive. He lives back in Florida. Hasn't been able to make our last couple of deals, but he was somebody that I think should be mentioned. He and Messer were
Right.
They were great.
they were the two superstars, if you want to put it that way. And yet, both so humble, they would have been the very last people to ever talk about themselves.
Yep.
Never happened. They're not going to do it.
Well, the other guy is Bo Carter. Bo and I came in at the same time, and Bo had come from down in the coastal area, and we both were just out of junior college this time, but Bo was he was probably one of the best all-around athletes that ever played out there in a long time. He could do it all, but he had a great arm, and on that game, he just got hot. And I just don't think they were used to seeing such a elusive passing game, like they had. He just went crazy. And then George Ward, he's not here. He was going to be with us. George was an outstanding linebacker and fullback. but I just want to mention him because he's usually with us, and he couldn't make it today. But
Some
Here's a-
people might say that the Freedom Bowl was the biggest win in Fresno State football history. I think you guys would challenge that.
well, the only thing about that is they tied a game, and we're the only undefeated, untied team in 73 years. So my my daughter is their best man was Kevin Sweeney, and his dad was the coach of that team. And every time they get around, my daughter will say, "But Kevin,
You guys tied
the
one,
Mercy Bowl was undefeated and untied."
but we didn't play SC either.
Yeah, he was
No, I
just
think every
yeah.
every program, regardless, I don't care if it's Alabama or Fresno
Yeah.
State, people are gonna compare which was the best team,
Yeah.
which was the thing that separates us. I'm not gonna sit here and say we could have played with those guys, because we probably couldn't.
No.
But we did something
At
that no
the
one
time.
else has done at the time,
Yeah.
and it still stands. And we just kind of leave it at that, and nobody's trying to be better than anybody else.
No.
I think we're all proud Bulldogs. And it's nice to be a part of the legacy. You know,
Kevin was here this morning for breakfast, and he came over. And I saw him. He's a wonderful kid. He was a great athlete, and that's a joke that I told about what they talk about.
I'll tell a Kevin story real quick.
Yeah.
Because we had one of our reunions probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
He saw the camaraderie that we had and how long we had been doing it, and he came to me personally. I know Kevin, I coached against his dad when I was at Cal Poly. And he said that we're the only team that had that closeness. He said they won these games, they had all that great stuff, they never get together. Nobody in Fresno State does what we've done.
How do you explain that? How do you
The
explain
closeness.
Well,
We tried to explain it today as best we could.
well, the togetherness,
I don't know why it's
the
different.
togetherness that we had has never been exemplified to me as a coach. I coached for 32 years. Never seen it where it was like that. I mean, I don't care who that was over there. If he tripped, I'm going to cover his spot for him. I'm not going to ask about it or think about it or wish I did it. It's automatic. So I've never seen that unity in any team that I coached or been around. I mean, I've had some great teams. I won a Valley, all that. Not like we had. You agree?
I'd say one more thing.
Yeah.
I think this. I've thought about this, and just we're talking about it now. When we played and after we played, that was an era of great importance for people, for whatever reason, physical fitness and going into coaching. I would say probably 70% of our team went into some area of coaching, whether it be college coaching, well, started in high school. But we were all coaches. So that camaraderie of coaching, whether it be the Bohans or the Kendricks, we're all coaching. And so I think that has something common. Maybe Kevin's team, maybe they went out and some were businessmen, some were here, some were there, and they didn't have that thing in common, which was that coach thing. And I don't know if that's it, but gosh, so many of us were all coaches.
Well, there's another little addition to that it's probably not relevant with some of the other ones, but after our games, we'd have a party, but every guy and wife that was, if you were married or had a girlfriend, was there. It wasn't a while that we just got together and we just, I don't know, just
Never a lot of married players.
Yeah,
back
we
then.
just
A lot of us
celebrated
were
each
married.
other. Yeah.
Do you get nostalgic about the game? I mean, I can still smell the shoe polish on my baseball cleats. I can smell my glove, even though it's not there. Is there something that takes you back? Anything like that?
Well, I think
When you're in the
again,
stadium or?
well, I think again for me, like they mentioned earlier, walking into that stadium, first of all, I had never been in the stadium that big. And playing before 33,000 people was like playing before 1 million people. That was overwhelming just to begin with. But I want to go back to, I think the other reason this team has stayed together, after we're all done playing, for some reason, we all just sort of stayed in contact by telephone. And we just kept doing that. That hasn't happened on any other team I've ever played on. And so then we said, okay, let's get together and have breakfast. So it was maybe a handful of guys, and it just kept growing. But I think, yeah, nostalgically, I think just playing in front of that big stadium and thinking about the Coliseum, that was a big deal in 1961 for some boys from Fresno.
You ever go by the Coliseum since then? And
Oh, yeah.
wow,
Yes.
and it comes
There's
right
a-
back to you.
Yeah, that plaque's still sitting there, the Mercy Bowl plaque in the entrance of the Coliseum, which is, yeah, it's still there.
I think Jim did a plaque, didn't you, or had something to do with one at Cal Poly? Don't we have something at Cal Poly?
Oh, yeah, there's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you do? Tell them.
You mean the Cal Poly Memorial?
Yeah.
Yeah. In relationship to Fresno State, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
There's a recognition thing of, they have a big memorial over at Cal Poly for the kids that died. It's a huge thing, but Fresno State there's a plaque over there that recognizes
Yeah.
what we had done on behalf for the survivors and the widows and the stuff that,
No,
to
it's-
support the Cal Poly cause.
Yeah, it's probably, when I ask somebody if they see my ring and they say, what is it? And you played in the Mercy Bowl, they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and then, but that happened this morning. And the girl pulls out her phone. I'm not good at this. Boom, boom, boom. She had the Mercy Bowl on there, and it told all about it, just like that. And I still don't know how to do it, but when you're talking about it and you talk about the Mercy Bowl, the younger kids certainly don't know what it was, And so, in my case, I tell them. I've got some pictures and things that I show, and pictures of these guys actually too on my phone. But the thing is, the whole town knew about it. When we got home, there was a avalanche of people waiting for us that had known what had happened, and they were so happy and things. And
Well, the part I remember.
tell them about the plane ride.
Yeah, the part I remember coming home was not coming home from the Mercy Bowl. It was Cal Poly had played Bowling Green back in Bowling Green. We had flown to play San Diego State in San Diego.
There you go. Yeah.
There were no cell phones and stuff in those days.
Yeah.
That plane had crashed, and there was a flash that came over the news service that a California football team had gone down in a plane crash. Nobody that was waiting for us to fly in from San Diego knew any more than that. When we got off the plane, there were wives, there were parents, there were girlfriends, there were friends. Everybody was in hysterics when we got off the plane because they weren't
They
too
thought
sure.
it was us that
They
went
thought
down.
it might have been
Yeah.
us that had crashed.
Yeah.
And that's the first, when we stepped off the plane from the San Diego State game, that's the first thing we heard, that Cal Poly had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they thought it might have been us.
Yeah.
That's kind of a coincidence that we were in the air when it happened.
There's a couple of quotes right out of the newspaper the next day about Dwight Perry, the Bowling Green coach. He says, "We were licked by a better team." He says, "I didn't think anybody could beat us this bad. We could not stop their passes." And another guy from the LA paper the next day wrote, "Fresno had more formations than a strip teaser has gyrations."
We had the camaraderie we had, like I said earlier, is unexplainable, and you could sit around and talk about it all day, but I guess it just has to be the people, and it has to happen, and when it does, you live through that. But I think that one thing that I have to say, that when I coached at Fresno State, Bob Burgess, who was our coach, was still there, and J.R. Boone was the head coach. Well, Bob and I had to work out the offense. I was the offensive coordinator. I'm now his boss. And so what he told me some stories, he says, well, Coach Coleman, he says, I know all you guys didn't like him. Well, hell, he'd tell
He
us,
was ornery.
run 10 stadiums. If you made one mistake, he'd have you go run stairs at the stadium. And I mean, lots of stairs. So anyway, Burgess said, he told all the assistant coaches, I'm going to be the bad guy, and when I tell them something, then you go over and put your arm around them. And he did this. He told all the guys, he'd say, well, he's just trying to make you better. Now, don't get mad. Just go out and do your job. You know, well, Burgess told me that, and he told me that, and I believe him, because we all didn't like Coleman. We didn't like him because nobody else would do it. He'd pick on, if you were a free safety or a corner, and you're supposed to take away your outs before you cover the pass, and if you took the step wrong, stadium. Just with a bad step in practice. So I would say that if any team was perfect, us 36 were perfect in everything we did, because we didn't want to run stadiums.
Good
But
thing
see,
you guys were in
again,
the Coliseum.
That's where we had those assistant coaches I referred to earlier were really good, because they kept us encouraged.
Yep.
And they held us firm, but they let us know how much they cared about us, but they were working our butts off so we would get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
We were going
unique.
out to practice one day, and I had to go back in because they made us wear ankle wraps. It wasn't tape; it was an ankle wrap. And if you got caught without an ankle wrap on, you had hell to pay. So I had gone back in, I think, to use the restroom, and when I came out the second time, Bob Burgess, the assistant coach, and Coleman were walking in front of me, and they didn't know I had come in behind them. And Coleman turned to Burgess, and I'm standing right behind him. They don't know I'm there, and he said, "Let's go kick the hell out of those kids today." That's the kind of, it's like I almost wanted to turn around and go back in the locker room. Oh, he was ornery. There was no.
One day it was spring practice, our first year. It was kind of cold. It had been raining, and we were all saying, "Oh man, we don't want to practice. We can get out of it today somehow." We just didn't want to do it, and so we got out on the field, and Coleman said, "Well, if it starts raining, we won't have practice." And he turned around, he looked up at the clouds, and the clouds were getting ready to rain, and all of a sudden they disappeared. The sun came out.
It's a true story.
And that is a true story. We all witnessed it. And he says, "Okay, let's go." Coleman was a very unique football coach, no question about it. And the system that he put together with his staff to do what they did to us has probably never be done again. And I'm sure Jimmy and Tom and our coaching careers, we probably thought about some of those things in different ways, but we just didn't have the stuff to do the whole thing he did, because he did it for the whole year. I mean,
here's another story on Coleman for me personally. I talked about the interception I missed. We'd have been undefeated for 2 seasons in a row. Well, nobody, and it was the field goal. I'm watching it go over my head because I'm free safety. I knew we'd lost the game, last play of the game. So I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm crying my eyes out. All of us are in tears against Montana State. So Zach Sweeney was coaching there. And went into the locker room, and we're all just feeling, and I'm like this, and I'm still crying, and all of a sudden there's 2 wingtips between my cleats. And I look up, and he says, "You should be crying. You cost us the game."
Wow.
That's the kind of personality that we were dealing with.
Wow.
And I've forgiven him. I think it was uncalled for, and he got me on one other little story. So we're getting ready. We found out that we were going to play red. We were going to be the red team in the Mercy Bowl, not the red team, red jerseys, and Bowling Green was going to be white. Well, the last game of the season, we went undefeated, and we always threw our jerseys in a big pile to get clean. And we didn't play the Mercy Bowl. It was like 2 weeks before that game. Came back in Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was. Coleman calls me in the office, and he says, "Where's your jersey?"
I remember this.
I said, "What do you mean, where's my jersey?" He said, "Number 20 is missing. Where's your jersey?" Well, I was a senior, so he had assumed, obviously, that I'm a senior. I'm going to steal that jersey for my super. Well, I didn't steal the jersey. So he said, "You got 2 choices. says, you get that jersey back before game time, because we only had whites and reds, or I'm not going to start you. He didn't start me. I didn't steal the jersey. That's the kind of, he just assumed and we found out years later, one of our teammates stole it. And they saw him wearing it downtown.
We won't mention the name right now.
In the meantime, I'm sitting through the whole first half of the first quarter and just dying because I'd played my whole life. You know, now I'm not getting to start the game of the game. And he put me back in. And,
I mean, he wasn't
was
small
just-
time stuff, I'm telling you.
you know, it's
No.
like I didn't deserve that. You know, he was on me.
We were playing our first game at Montana, and Bo and I were fighting it out for the blue team quarterback, and it was cold up there, very cold. And John got hurt, remember that? And Coleman came over to me and he says, "Your hand's warm?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't, you know." And he says, "Bo, get in there."
Said the
I'm
wrong
serious.
thing.
Yeah, he came over to ask me. I should have said, "Yeah, they're hot." But no, that's just one of the things that happened. But you know, we all had something crazy happen. But the guy was, I mean, even though we didn't like the stuff the way that he did it, he was a great coach. There's none of us will question that. You know.
Now, you're not going to send this to his family, are you?
No, hope not. But it was, you know, the way we traveled in those days, like anything close, we'd take a bus, the Greyhound bus, and
Except for that San Diego game.
we're
He flew.
we're back, me and him and four other, we're back in the back playing cards.
playing
In the
cards.
back, we got a little thing set up where we're playing cards, and we had cleats. You know, I don't know where we got the cleats, but we had cleats. We
That's
played
what
for them, and
poker-
Coleman came back. He says, "You guys playing for money?" "Oh no, coach, we're just playing for cleats." Each one of those cleats were worth a nickel,
quarter,
a
who knows,
quarter,
I don't
something
know.
like that. Yeah.
Probably a nickel, you're right.
Yeah, it would
So,
have been a quarter. no
That's
less.
one of the few things we got him on.
I think the other thing that's interesting too is if you heard these conversations. See, Danny was 24 years old. How old were you?
22.
I was probably 21.
You were
then.
21.
I had a kid though. I had
But
a
we had
son.
several guys 23. I'm only 18 at that time.
Yeah.
Bo Carter was 19. So it was a big difference in ages. And I thought that was interesting, playing on a team. I'd never played on a team with guys that much older than me. So we learned a lot about not just athletics, learned a lot about life from one another, good and not good.
So two of us had been in the Army. Well, there were four of us been in the Army before we went to college. Went right in the Army out of high school. That's what happened to me and Nemo and Ward. So we were all older because we'd had our 3 years in the service. Then we started, when we got back, our career at junior college and went up. So that was the reason for that. But it was all a wonderful time, any way you want to cut it.
Yeah.
I just, I couldn't, if I wrote a book, I couldn't probably have enough time to really make it the way it was, because we're explaining it kind of some of the ways, some of the things that happened, but the coaching staff, every one of them they were just wonderful people. They were in every way, and that all put it all together, I think. I don't know. How about you, Tom?
Oh, sure, no question. And the coaching staff I thought was great. It really did. The assistant coaches were really great. Yes, yeah. And you know, again, me being a sophomore, so I played baseball, of course. So in my freshman year of baseball, this was right after the '61 football season. So we practiced. Our JV baseball coach was Kenny Gleason, who was one of our football coaches. So we'd practice baseball from 2 to about 5:30. Now you had the month of March where you have spring football practice. So I would wear my baseball uniform over to Radcliffe Stadium, put on my football uniform, and we'd practice from 6:30 to 8:30. So that was a long day. I thought, man, I've never done that before. I mean, I love it, but boy, that was tough. That was tough.
Another unique thing that happened that I just remembered is, I want Jimmy to tell it, but Jimmy was such a outstanding defensive player, and Dale Messer was such an offensive player that they had a little deal. Tell them about it.
Well, what had happened, Dale and I had played together in junior college, and we were always great friends, and there was never, ever any doubt who the best football player was. I mean, there was no jealousy. I acquiesced with no problem, even though I was a starter, always played and everything, but I was no Dale Messer. But when we came here, and he started that two-platoon thing, or the Reds and the Blues, Dale was on the red team and I was on the blue team. So I was playing just as much as Dale was. And I wasn't near the running back that Dale Messer was, but I was playing equal time. Well, when the season was over, I had broke the school record for interceptions. And Coleman, in being smart, called us both in and he said, starting spring ball, Sanderson, you're playing all the defense on the Reds and the Blues. Messer, you're playing all the offense. So Dale, even later on in his years, he thanked me because that was great for him because he got
49ers, yeah.
he got all the rushing yards now. He wasn't having to share with me. And of course, I got all the interceptions. So it was a great deal for both of our careers is I was playing all the defense on both teams. He was playing all the offense. And we had played together in junior college, so it was a great friendship. And for years and years, we just had so much fun reminiscing about that, how we grew up as kids together and how it worked out. And there was only one person that could do that back in those days. If you substituted and you went in the first quarter and you came out, you couldn't come back in until the second quarter, except for one position. It was called the wild card. So I was the wild card. I got to play all the defense, they all got to play all the offense. So it was great for both of us.
That's why I think that Coleman come up with this genius idea because of the substitution rule. So, think about it. If you go in and you, for some reason, you could come out, you can't go back until the next quarter. So he come up with this red blue gold system
We
where
were
he could
fresh all the time.
Yeah.
And you ought to have seen the scrimmages against who's going to get the start. The scrimmages were harder than some of the games.
Yeah.
There was some great things that happened in our scrimmages. We have these big pads we'd put on,
Protective
I don't
pads.
think they have them anymore. I've never seen them anymore. But anyway, we'd put them on. And one day we were having one of our regular scrimmages, and not Sonny Bishop, Doug Brown pulled, and Ron Itzkoff, who weighed about 150 pounds, was on the end. And usually you just plug them, you don't try to kill them, we're all teammates. But he knocked Itch actually in the air, and he was a big guy. He was the tallest guy
He's
on
the
our
biggest
team,
guy
about
on the team,
6'3", about 240 or 50. And so George Ward said, that's not right. Itch, you get over here, we're trading places. And so the next time he came, of course, George was as tough as they come, pound for pound. And
Doug wasn't ready for it.
And Doug wasn't ready for it, and he just crashed him down. And he said, and the coaches didn't say a word. I don't remember them saying it. Pick yourself up. Let's go get the next play. But that's kind of how we took care of each other. It's just
George
it's
was
amazing.
just sticking up for the little guy.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the other real colorful players on that ball club was Billy Kendrick.
Oh,
he was a
man.
running back, a halfback, and he was a good offensive player. But he was a character, too. He kept us all pretty loose, and he had lots of good sayings.
Yep.
And during those playing years and after those playing years, when we get together, he made things very interesting. He was the Bob Hope of our group.
No, he was. He was fantastic. He was something else. He would you could feel it, right? When he was in the game, it just really pumped everybody up because I think he had played with Coleman at Arizona, right?
That's
He
exactly
came in,
right.
so
Yeah.
he would say things
He had to
we
sit out the first
would
year.
never say, right?
Yeah.
He
Oh,
just
no,
had a way of doing
nobody
it.
would ever say
Yeah,
that.
he was something else.
Right.
He was a great
He's
player.
just an old roughneck cowboy that
Yep.
the words,
But he
I
was
don't have
good.
to say what words, but he didn't pull any punches. I don't care where he was, what the company was, male, female. He only knew one way to converse, and it was either accept me for who I am, or that's fine if you don't want to. Then that was Billy Kendrick.
He was unreal. He was so funny. there was some story, and I don't remember who it was. You probably remember, Tom, that somebody was calling to play, and they.
It was me. I can tell you what it was.
Well, go ahead. I can't
We were
remember.
playing University Pacific,
Yeah.
and Billy and I were in the backfield together at that time. And Bo was a young quarterback.
Oh, okay.
And the plays were long. I mean, it was like the pros, the way they would call them. They went forever and ever.
Yeah.
And Bo started stuttering and everything. And Kendrick said, Bo, shut up and just play. We'll just run right half at one sweep. And so he started calling the plays. He wouldn't even let Bo call the plays. I don't think Coleman even knew. And Bo was so intimidated.
He wouldn't know that.
He wouldn't
No.
even know.
No, he would never know that at all.
Shut up, Bo. Just.
Sounds like a fun time.
Oh, wow.
Is there something that you'd like people to know or remember about that team, about this team?
I think Danny brought it up right off the get-go, the closeness. You can't even measure it. It's, I mean, I coached for 40 years, and we've had close teams, and I coached on a national championship team at Cal Poly and undefeated team here, but I've never seen the closeness that this team's had. And a lot of it's an intangible. I don't know if we can explain it any better than we already have tried to, but we were able to stay in touch. And like I'd mentioned earlier, Kevin Sweeney came to me personally and said, I can't believe you guys do this, because we had great teams too, but we don't stay in touch.
Right.
We don't, nobody does that but you guys. So
One
something.
thing that I thought was kind of unique, and I've been thinking about it, is that our wives and our girlfriends, they were in the same mode that we were in. Like, I was married, there was quite a few kids
I
were
was
married,
I was
but
married
our
and a kid.
wives supported us
Yeah.
100%, and if you don't have that, it's a little bit different too. So no matter where we were or who we were with, we all had the same feeling. And without my wife supporting me when she was teaching, I couldn't have had the same feeling that I had about it, but I did. And so I think that all of the wives that are still living, I know how they supported their guys without one doubt, and my heart goes out to every one of them that someone is missing, because they're still with us guys when we have a meeting. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I know you guys don't want me to forget this, when we have a funeral, we've been doing this for 30 years. We put these shirts on, we go to the funeral, and we lift the casket, and we make talks and presentations with each guy. And we've been doing that since the first guy.
Support the wife
Yes,
and the family of the lost one.
yes.
Yeah, we're always there for them.
Yeah, that's a real thing. And again, I know we're repeating ourselves, but that closeness is something I don't think you could really explain, because that doesn't happen very often. Not just in athletics, doesn't happen in life a lot, does it?
Yeah.
But to be able to stay in touch with people, and people call you, and when they hear something, maybe that you're sick or that somebody has passed away, that has just continued on. And that has been something that's been really amazing. And I especially feel that way about the widows that we have of all the guys that have passed away. They stay connected, and they allow us to connect with them, and they come to our events. That's pretty special. That's pretty special.
I just think for some reason we did some good things for people. I think God blessed us, and there's no other way I can explain to you that we all feel that way, that we were blessed, and we're all very proud of it. And I think every one of us are trying to do that to all the people around. I know both of these guys have. They never quit helping people. I try to do the same thing, because I do believe that God blessed this group, not just for football, but I think it was just a special group of people that got together, and all of a sudden the good Lord had a hold of us, and He put us together and kept us together. And even the ones that are gone were still that way with their family. When we had our reunion, we had more women here than we had men.
Widows, they all
Yes.
got recognized. And
That's right.
Yeah.
And
you
I would like to thank the athletic director from Fresno State. He was here, and we had just met him, and we didn't even know he was here. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you very much, and all of your staff that are with you. They're great guys. I got to meet them a little bit.
You got the best here.
And I know that my guys feel the same way. I just think that we've been blessed, and we're not going to quit doing and helping people as much as we can as long as we're alive, and we'll keep this thing going until there's nobody left.